I'm a licensed social worker, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I have worked in the mental health field for about 4 years now.
Okay.
So I work with people who are looking for mental and emotional health, healing, wellness, all that good stuff. It's not always just about mental illness.
And you said social worker, and I thought social worker was just for kids because growing up, I just thought like having an adoption and being adopted and having a social worker to find you to a nice family.
You know what's interesting? And I want to say it's Maryland that recently passed a law that says that people cannot call themselves social workers if they're not licensed social workers. But in most cases, those are caseworkers
Caseworkers.
that go to people's homes and deal with children CPS. They're not social workers. So we kind of get a bad rap, but that's not really what we do.
Okay. So, well, first of all, Miss April Latson,
Yes.
you from the DMV area?
I am not. I'm from New York. I'm a native New Yorker.
Oh, I don't hear no accent. I don't hear no son. I don't hear no done.
Yeah,
I actually know Tim's.
You know what? My significant other says when I get mad, that's when all of the New York comes out.
Okay.
That's when all of the New York comes out.
Okay. So what made you get into that field?
So social work, I actually originally went to college for applied psychology. And I felt like applied psychology was missing the advocacy component. Like they really focus heavily, psychology degrees and counseling degrees really focus heavily on theory and the brain, and not so much the person and environment perspective, which is the major component of social work, dealing with person and environment. It's like kind of the nature versus nurture argument, right? Which affects a person more. So I wanted to deal more in the advocacy piece. So I went into social work. And I got my bachelor's and my master's degree in social work from New York University. And shortly after graduating with my master's, I moved here to the DMV area. I've been here for almost 4 or 5 years now.
Okay. What you think? What you think about the DMV area?
Oh, I love it here. I ain't never going back.
Oh, okay. That's all I hear. People will go, I'm going to New York. That's where it's at.
No. New York is expensive and it's stressful and it's overcrowded. I'm good.
I feel like it's stressful everywhere we go and around here.
It's not overcrowded though. It's not overcrowded, and like New York is expensive beyond belief. Like I lived in Jersey before I came here, and the taxes. I wanted to buy a house. The taxes on the houses in Jersey were from like 10 grand to 15 grand a year, and my taxes here are like $2,300 a year.
Okay.
I'm good. I'm not moving.
So, what's the problem with what's the issue? I guess in New York is just the money issue, but I feel like a lot of relationships, that's one of the number one cause is money.
No, actually, from what I've seen, the number one issue in relationships has been communication. People don't know how to effectively communicate with each other, and I think there's an expectation that others just know how you feel and know what you want, and people don't verbalize that to their partners, and then they have this, well, why didn't you know, or why didn't you do this? It's like, well, if you don't tell me, I don't know.
Right.
And I think people expect other people to love them the way they want to be loved without knowing what that looks like, right? So there's this book called The 5 Love Languages, which is a very important book for relationships, or it's a very important theory or concept.
5 languages?
The 5 love languages.
5 love languages.
So there are 5 love languages. In other words, there are 5 ways that we communicate love and appreciation to each other, or rather that we receive love and appreciation from each other. And those are, I always forget one, so give me a second. It's the act of service, gifts, positive affirmations, physical touch, and quality time. Oh, I remembered all 5. And quality time. So everyone gives and receives love and appreciation in a different way. But more often than not, we give love the way we want to receive love. But that doesn't necessarily mean that your partner receives love the way that you do. So if my love language is acts of service, but your love language is gifts. If I'm always just doing things for you and never giving you gifts, you're not going to feel loved and appreciated because that's not the way you receive it.
Right.
So I think that's a big part of the reason we have so much difficulty in relationships. It's just the communication aspect and not really knowing how to love one another the way that we want to be loved. We've always been taught we treat people the way we want to be treated. No, you treat people the way they want to be treated.
Yeah, and how you supposed to know? I feel like you know Toy Story, right? With Woody, the pull string. I feel like every couple months, or months, I gotta tell my wife, I'm not a fucking psychic. I can't read your mind.
Well, you know what? It's interesting. I'll say when I was young, I was dating somebody and he was like, I'm not gonna know what you want unless you tell me.
Right.
And that was like a revelation for me. I think women just, oftentimes expect our partner to know, hey, this is what I want, this is what I need, but that's just not realistic. Like, nobody's a mind reader. So we do have to be transparent. We do have to be open and honest, and that's not something that we should tiptoe around. Like, if you're worth, getting what you ask for, getting what you need.
If you in this, I can't get out. You might as well just you might as well get what you get. Right down the list. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's important, but I think that's important on both sides too. Men aren't always super transparent about what they want or need either. So I think on both sides of the table, we have to be more open with our communication, and we have to be more willing to be honest, right? I think sometimes there's a fear associated with, well, if I tell them this, how will they feel? Or will this upset them? Or will this bother them? Well, no, if we're trying to build a healthy relationship, a long-lasting healthy relationship, it is important that we are open and honest about what we need, what we want, how we feel. But I think also what I see a lot in doing relationship counseling is people don't know the difference between what they need and what they want.
That's deep.
And it's an issue. Sometimes we think the things that we want are the things that we need, and they're not.
I want a Gucci bag.
But that's a want, right?
I want a Balenciaga.
Those are all wants, but we don't need those things, not necessarily.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think we first have to in order for us to be healthy or have healthy relationships, we have to be healthy ourselves.
Right.
And a lot of people don't have that and aren't there, and we do a lot of blaming, or it's the other person, No, sometimes it's you and it's your stuff, right? And in order for us to get to that healthy place, we have to have that communication with ourselves.
Keep it real with yourself.
Have to be 100% honest with you. If you're not going to be honest with you, why you expect somebody else to be honest with you? And therapy is a great place to do that. It's a great opportunity to kind of dig deep and really understand who you are and where you come from. There's so many things that happen in our lives that affect who we are and who we become, and we don't even realize or recognize it until it manifests in a way that we don't know how to handle. And that's an unhealthy outlet. It's interesting. I've had people come in for counseling and they'll be like, oh, I'm only going to do 3 months. I want to work on this one thing. And, then I'm going to tie it up. And I'm like, okay. But you never know what's going to come out. You never know what's going to come out.
How do you get Black people to go to a therapist? You have a cookout there?
Black people?
Yeah, because it's hard. You're like, you are. Just go to sleep.
Go to church.
Yeah. Go to church.
Well, surprisingly,
just pray, baby. Just pray.
There are a lot of churches and religious institutions now who are promoting mental health, which is a great thing, and it's really important. And we definitely do have some stigma in our community surrounding, seeing a therapist in mental health, and if there's something wrong with it, or you're not crazy, or just a lot of negativity surrounding the idea of it. But realistically, Black people probably need mental health more than anybody else. When you think about what we face from day to day in this country or in this world, really,
and just the trauma of slavery,
it's extremely traumatic. It's extremely traumatic, and it has such an effect on us individually, and we see the repercussions of that in our families and our children generationally. is so deeply embedded and ingrained, and we absolutely we absolutely need it more than anybody else does. You know, because though the traumas that we experience aren't isolated incidents, right? These are traumatic experiences that we're having day to day, and unfortunately, so much of it has become so normalized that we don't even recognize it as trauma anymore.
You know what? I'm high right now, but I'm trying to remember this story or this thing I heard. This lady was talking about it was a white mom and a black mom. The white mom said they when asked about their child, they gave so much nice things, and he's doing he's going to school and all that. He's going to college and stuff like that. And when a person asks how about their black son, or the mom, she was like, he's all right. He's a nuisance. He getting on my nerves. And that goes back to slavery, when the slave master was telling the mom how good the boy was, the little young slave boy, how good he was. The black slave, the mom was like, he's a nuisance. He ain't worth, because they think you might sell him
away.
Yeah, so it's deep.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Oh wow, this is deep. How much time I got? Yeah, so I think
Trauma in the black community. We got 5 minutes.
Listen,
we got to solve this.
No way. You know, I think we as a people have to recognize the one that it is very deeply ingrained, right? But a lot of these behaviors have become almost like a generational curse. Like the language, the way we talk to our families, the way we talk to our children. And on top of it, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, you know, rest in power. The anniversary of her passing was just a couple of days ago. But she talked a lot about, I lost my train of thought. I started thinking about her.
The bad talk.
Oh, she talked a lot about the media, right? And how there's this constant negative imagery surrounding black people in this country, really, again, all over the world. But if you're constantly being called a nigga and a bitch, like, how do you have a positive self-esteem? How do you feel good about yourself when every image of you is a drug dealer or a prostitute or a violent, you know, criminal or, you know, a drug user? How do you feel good about yourself? How do we raise children to be bright and happy and intelligent when they're constantly being bombarded with images of themselves that are all negative, right? But that's the rhetoric. That's what we are constantly seeing in the media, you know, and unfortunately we really don't have many black-owned media outlets that have the ability to control the narrative for us. So when your narrative is controlled by your enemy, you know, how do you expect to come out of that? How do you expect to be something different, especially for children, because they're so impressionable. You know, children are sponges. Everything they say, everything we say or do around them, they soak it up and they internalize it, right? So when we look at lifespan development, up until, I want to say, about 7 or 8 years old, children don't even recognize that they're separate from their outside world.
What you mean?
So when children are small, they tend to think that everything that happens around them is a result of them.
At what age?
Up to maybe like 7 or 8.
Okay.
That's when they start to have a little more independence and realize that they're separate from the rest of their world. But in psychology, they refer to it in some contexts as narcissism, right? But not narcissism in a negative way, more in the idea that it's all about me, that's all they understand is themselves. And so they think that everything that happens in their world is a result of them. So like when their parents are fighting, oh, mommy and daddy are fighting because I'm bad. Right. Or when something outside, this is why when children experience trauma, or what we call ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, when children experience trauma like sexual abuse, when they're young, they internalize it and they start to think that they're the bad one, which is a lot of times why they don't report who their victimizer is.
So strange to me.
It's all a part of lifespan development, which is why a lot of perpetrators
brain development.
And why a lot of perpetrators do pick very young children, because they haven't recognized yet that they're a separate person and that they're entitled to their own space and they're entitled to have control of their own body. And it's one thing I often tell parents. A lot of parents like, you have to do what adults tell you to do. No, we don't tell children that. Children have to have a semblance of independence, right? Because they have to be able to say no. They have to be able to say that's not okay. They have to be able to say, no, you can't do that to me. But if you tell them that they have to do what every adult tells them to do, then you take away that ability to be independent,
yeah.
to assert themselves. So we have to be mindful as parents about how we talk to our children, and mindful about taking away their ability to speak for themselves. But that, I went off on a whole nother tangent. That's
No, I feel you on that one. I was going to say something about the music and how I was somewhere. I was at a family's birthday party, and there was kids there, and one of my nephews was a rapper, and he came and he played his hit song or something like that to the whole family, and there was kids there, and the song was talking about sucking dick and
oh wow,
and busting off and shooting shots and shooting niggas, and everybody was just rocking to it. And I'm just looking around, like I wanted to stop it, but I was like, I ain't gonna be like that. I'm just gonna be like, yeah, this be hard.
Well,
I feel like, and then I watch girls. All right, I be watching people driving with their kids, and they listening to the Baby and
oh god,
some other trap music, and I'm like, kids they know everything. They can sense everything. They have a recorder. My daughter has a recorder. Every time she goes somewhere, she just tells me. I'm like, what happened, baby? Boop. Mama said you ain't shit.
Well, I hope that's not what she says. But it is true. Children, like I said, children are sponges. They soak everything up around them. And I think what we're seeing now with our young people is this desire to imitate the flashy lifestyle. Like they want the money, they want the jewels, they want that lifestyle, right? They want what they see. And they
Fast
think
life.
that, right, they think the way to get it is by mimicking the behaviors of the people who have it. But none of that is by accident, right? So again, we have to think about who controls the media, who controls the imagery, who controls the message, right? There are lots of conscious rappers out there, tons of them, but we don't hear them on the radio so much, right? Because that's not who's controlling the narrative. And that's not the narrative that they want to be pushed. It's not the agenda that they want to be pushed. So, but I think that, again, goes back to, us as parents, right? Like, I think we live in a society now where there's a lot of, kind of leaving our kids alone with devices, to get them out of our hair for a little while. And I don't get me wrong, I understand more than anybody else the need for self-care, right? Sometimes parents need a break.
Right.
But I think we also have to be monitoring what we're exposing our children to. And be monitoring what kind of music they're listening to, what are they watching on television, and then having conversations with them about what they do see and what they do hear.
Yeah.
We can't just let other people teach our kids. Malcolm said it best.
What'd he say?
If you let your enemy teach your children, then what?
Yeah. And my sister actually does homeschooling, so and I wish there would be more homeschooling.
There are so many homeschooling networks. I actually belong to a homeschooling Facebook group online because I'm planning on homeschooling my youngest when he gets a little older. Right now, I can't because of my career, but I'm planning on homeschooling him for sure because I'm over it with the school system. That's something else that I do a lot of, advocacy work for parents in the school system that are dealing with issues with their children, with Black children specifically.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of railroading of parents in the school system. Like, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable the things that they're doing to Black children.
Like what?
Oh my God, they're trying to label.
I know, like, truancy is not truancy, but they suspend more Black children than white.
Oh yeah, there's definitely more disciplinary action handed down to Black children over white children, and that's nationally. That's not just in any one particular state. And actually, there was a law passed. Nobody ever believes me when I tell them this, but please look it up. I'm a true component and advocate for, don't take my word, research it, right? So there's a law that passed in Missouri in January of 2017. I've had many of my students write about this. The law says that Anyone from grades kindergarten through 12th grade can be arrested and charged with a felony for fighting on or near school grounds. And if they assault a police officer or a teacher in the process, they can be charged with a hate crime.
Wow.
So,
And especially like in St. Louis, is like in those schools is just crazy.
but who are they targeting? They're not going to enforce that law in white neighborhoods,
Right.
right? And it's law designed to feed the school to prison pipeline.
Yeah.
You know, and one thing I try to get people to understand, especially my students, because they're the social workers of America, is that you have to understand the way politics and policy works is it might not be here today, but it starts someplace.
Right.
And if they render the results that they're seeking, they're going to replicate that law all across the country.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to put your foot down. You have to put a stop to it when it starts. Don't wait till it gets to your front door, because then it's too late.
Yeah.
You know, so we have to be aware of what's
Gotta be
happening in our
engaged, yeah.
country. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially with policy regarding our people.
I was going to ask you, you familiar with Dr. Umar and him and his school?
I worked with him for many years.
Okay. How do you feel about the people just downing him for no reason? I mean, downing him because of things like where's the money, and of course you can't do much with the money that he had. But what do you think?
I mean, I think people are going to talk no matter what you do. If you're good, if you're bad, if you do nothing, people are going to talk about you. So, I mean, I know him, and I know he's not a person that really cares a whole lot about what people think. And what I will say about Dr. Umar is I initially started working with him when I lived in New Jersey, when I was working out of Newark. I was running a National Independent Black Parents Association out of Newark, New Jersey, back in like 2015, that time, 2013. And he's boots on the ground. Like, I see a lot of these people who speak and who have these big lectures, and they, you know, charge people and they bring people out and they do all of that. But he is boots on the ground. He comes down. He's done things for me in the community, hasn't charged anything for them, just came and provided services, you know, provided support, provided information to the community at hand, helped us build organizations, he is boots on the ground. Like, say what you want about him, but he's one of the few, if not one of the only, who's actually out here doing the work. So,
And he found a school, right?
He has a school. The school is in Delaware. It's not that far. And they're trying to renovate it right now. It's a whole campus, and they're trying to renovate it right now. So a lot of people talk a lot of trash about him. Oh, where's the money? Where's the school? He's doing exactly what he said he was going to do, you know, and to no avail with all of the people that have been coming down on him and trying to beat up on him about it. He still made it happen, you know, because a lot of folks would have just said, "The heck with y'all,
Right.
I'm out. Like, this is too much." But he truly is boots on the ground. He truly does the work, and I truly appreciate that about him.
You ever been to one of his trips to Ghana?
To Africa, no.
No?
I want to go so bad, but I haven't made it yet.
You know, there's like this big year of return in Ghana. They got black celebrities. Ludacris went to Gabon. What's the name of that country? Gabon, whatever. But anyway, they got rappers going. T.I. went to Ghana. Roland Martin went to Ghana too. And, you know, what do you think about black people going back to Africa?
I'm with it. I'm all about the Marcus Garvey movement. I'm with it. I mean, I have 5 children, right? 2 biological, 3 stepchildren. And it's not the easiest to uproot an entire family and move them. If I didn't have any children, I would be gone. I would be there. Because it would be just a lot easier of a transition. But there's so much that we can do there, you know, and our money goes so much further there than it does here, right? And our influence goes so much further there than it does here. So I'm 100%, I'm all about the movement. And I think everybody needs to go visit at the very least. I've had like 2 friends of mine from high school who went for New Year's, who were both in Ghana at the same time for New Year's.
Oh, okay.
You know, so people are going, and I'm here for it. Like, I can't wait till I get an opportunity to go. I have I have an infant, a 1-year-old, so we can't go right now.
I did.
He's too small, but that's too small for him to be on a plane for that long. He'd lose his mind. But
Of course,
we're
I
planning
would go.
on it.
I would go to Ghana, but I feel like it's like a money grab, and I feel like why would I go back to the people that sold me?
Yeah,
And then they going and then I'm giving them money,
I don't see it that way at all.
you don't. Why?
No, I think it's a different time. And I don't think it was, I think for those who did sell Africans into slavery, I don't think it was with the expectation of what the American slave trade was. Right. So you have to understand the American slave trade was very different. Slavery existed all across the world, like prior to the American slave trade, but not as violent and as demeaning as the American slave trade was. Like that was a whole different animal. And I don't think they expected that or knew that at all. You know,
Yeah, slavery was different back then. And like in Nigeria, um, there's there's this article something about how my great grandfather, the slave owner or something like that, but he buried his slaves with him while he died and kept their chains and stuff like that. They lived with them, so it was kind of different. But
yeah, I think the expectation was different. So I think for those who did sell African people into slavery, Africans who sold other Africans into slavery, there was not the expectation that they would be, violently abused and raped and murdered.
They didn't know that.
They didn't know that.
It was just acts of war, prisoners.
Could be. I wasn't there. I can't say what all of the reasoning was, but I don't believe that there was an expectation that it would turn out the way it did. Okay.
There's this movement called the ADOS movement. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It stands for American Descendants of Slaves. The whole thing was reparations and how, and they were getting some backlash from black immigrants saying how they're being divisive and not including them and stuff like that. But their whole thing is we built America and immigrants came like around the 80s. So when black people actually want to fight for something for themselves, they get so much hate.
Yeah, but I think that we have to get, so this idea of individualism is a very Western ideology, right? In our African roots, in our African culture, we come from a very collectivist community, right? So this idea that, Black Americans are different from Caribbean Americans, who are different from Haitian Americans, who are different from not Haitian American, Haitians and Caribbeans and Africans. No, the Pan-Africanist perspective is that we are all one. We are all Africans of the diaspora. So we have to operate from that point of view. And I think if we did and we really worked collectively as a community, even if it wasn't all of us, but a good majority of us, we would see tremendous change.
What is Africa? 54 countries? And I feel like they have their own problems. Like there's so much conflict in between them. And I'm pretty sure you can't go to different countries and like with a passport, they have their own rules and they not allowing certain people from different countries. So it's pretty divisive there too.
Yeah, it's also very colonized.
That too.
So, we have to look at the influence that it's had.
It's so corrupt too.
Yeah, again, colonized, right? So a lot of the influence that we see there is from our colonizers. They're from Europeans, and they've made a tremendous impact on the motherland, on Africa, right? But I think, regardless, I think we can't really get very caught up in the things that are negative. There's going to be negative things in every community and every group, right? But I think as Black people, we tend to magnify the things that are negative in our own community and not the things that are positive, right? I hear people say, "Oh, Black people don't stick together." That's not true at all. I see lots of Black people, communities, groups that band together, that stick together, that pull together to make things happen. I see it all the time, right? So I think it's a matter of, if all you see is negativity, then you need to take a look at your own circle. And you need to take a look at what you're contributing to that circle as well.
All these people hating on me. Oh, so much drama, everybody.
Maybe it's you.
It might be. It might be. I knew this young lady, I promise you, she used to walk around with sage and sage everywhere she went. And I was like, honey, that's you. Like, if you got to burn sage everywhere you go, it's you.
It's you.
It's not everybody else. So sometimes it's a matter of us learning how to check ourselves.
Check yourself.
Right. And be able to say, and that's the thing, you know, as a social worker, the one thing that we must absolutely always do is check ourselves, because we cannot bring our stuff into someone else's. If I'm trying to help you, but I got my own baggage and my own stuff, how I'm gonna help you?
Right.
Right. So the same rules apply to when we're working with our community. I got to check my stuff before I can come into my community and try to help and try to do good and try to create
Check
things.
yourself. Make sure you
I have to make sure I'm good.
Yeah, you can't
You
fight
know.
this. You gotta get some rest if you want to fight the struggle.
You got to be emotionally and mentally sound.
You gotta be there.
You have to be whole. You can't pour from an empty cup. So you got to be full first.
Do you have some? It's New Year 2020. You have some advice for people in miserable relationships?
Get out.
Get out. All right.
No, I mean, you shouldn't be miserable anywhere. You shouldn't be miserable. If you're miserable, then you do need to leave. And I'm not an advocate or a proponent for telling people to leave relationships. I don't really do that.
What about the people? I do it.
Well, I mean, I think we don't know everything.
If someone's like always arguing, miserable, what was I going to say? And you're not happy. You just gotta let it go.
But I
and
think,
and then they're gonna be like, I'm just I don't quit things, man. I'm gonna work on it. What you trying to save?
No.
All because you put time in something,
but you
you
know,
still gotta cut it off.
sometimes
Cut it off.
we only know what people tell us, right?
Or maybe it was you.
We gotta right. We only know what people tell us or what they share, and it might not be all sides of the story. Right. So, you know, if we start telling, and that's the other thing I would say, when we start telling folks that they need to leave and it needs to be over, what ends up happening is when they leave, who they mad at? They mad at you because you told them to leave, and it's your fault, and you're gonna take the blame.
Yeah.
So I don't get in the habit of telling folks to leave relationships. But what I do get in the habit of telling folks is to take care of yourself first. So if you're miserable and you're unhappy, you can't be in a happy relationship with anybody. You got to be in a happy relationship with yourself first. If you don't like you, how you expect somebody else to like you?
2020. Love yourself. Check yourself. Where can they reach you? And tell them your Facebook.
So I just started a Facebook mental health page. It's called Your Mental Health Matters. I think the @ was like @ Your Mental Health Matters 1 on Facebook. I guess somebody had the one without the one, I don't know. Or you can email me at alatson, ALATSONLGSW @gmail.com. That's alatson, ALATSONLGSW @gmail.com. If you have questions or if you're looking for a referral for mental health services. I'm not currently seeing clients, but I definitely can refer to people who are local to you.
All right, April. Thank you for joining Under the
Thank
Clout.
you for having me.